Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givaradhari Yasodhanandana Jana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Jana Ranjana Yamunatira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Giridhari Yasodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yasodhanandana Prajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunjabihari Jaya Vishnupad Paramahamsa Pravjakacharya Stotara Satta Shri Srimad Sri Sri Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Srimad Bhagavatam Gantaraja Ki Oh glories to the assembled devotees Oh glories to Sri Sri Guru and Gauranga Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya So today we are starting a new chapter in Canto 8. It's chapter 24, Matsya, the Lord's fish incarnation. So we normally read the introduction, I believe. I suppose we do. Yes, good. Okay. So here's the introduction. To the chapter. This chapter describes the Supreme Personality of Godhead's incarnation as a fish. And it also describes the saving of Maharaj Satyavrata from an inundation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead expands himself by swamsa, his personal expansions, and vibhinamsa, his expansions as the living entities. As stated in Bhagavad Gita 4.8, Paritranaya Sadanam Vinasyacha Duskritam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead appears on this planet for the protection of the sadhus or devotees and for the destruction of the miscreants or non-devotees. He especially descends to give protection to the cows, the Brahmins, the demigods, the devotees and the Vedic system of religion. Thus he appears in various forms, sometimes as a fish, sometimes as a boar, sometimes Nrsingadev, sometimes Vamanadev, and so on. But in any form or incarnation, although he comes within the atmosphere of the material modes of nature, he is unaffected. This is a sign of his supreme controlling power. Although he comes within the material atmosphere, Maya cannot touch him. Therefore, no material qualities can be attributed to him in any degree. Once at the end of the previous kalpa, a demon named Hayagriva wanted to take the Vedic knowledge away from Lord Brahma at the time of annihilation. Therefore, the Supreme Personality of Godhead took the incarnation of a fish at the beginning of the period of Swayambhuva Manu and saved the Vedas. During the reign of Chakshush Manu, there was a king named Satyavrata, who was a great pious ruler. To save him, the Lord appeared as a fish incarnation for a second time. King Satyavrata later became the son of the sun god and was known as Srestha Dev. He was established as Manu by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. To receive the favour of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, King Satyavrata engaged in the austerity of subsisting only by drinking water. Once, while performing this austerity on the bank of the Kritamala river and offering oblations of water with palms of his hand, he found a small fish. The fish appealed to the king for protection, asking the king to keep him in a safe place. Although the king did not know that the small fish was the Supreme Personality of Godhead himself, as a king he gave shelter to the fish and kept him in a water jug. The fish, being the Supreme Personality of Godhead, wanted to show his potency to King Satyavrata, and thus he immediately expanded his body in such a way that he could no longer be kept in a jug of water. The king then put the fish in a big well, but the well was also too small. Then the king put the fish in a lake, but the lake was also unsuitable. Finally, the king put the fish in the sea, but even the sea could not accommodate him. Thus the king understood that the fish was no one else but the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and he requested the Lord to describe his incarnation as a fish. The Personality of Godhead, being pleased with the king, informed him that within a week there would be an inundation throughout the universe, and that the fish incarnation would protect the king, along with the rishis, the herbs, the seeds, and other living entities in a boat, which would also be attached to the fish's horns. After saying this, the Lord disappeared. King Satyavrata offered respectful obeisances to the Supreme Lord and continued to meditate upon him. In due course of time, annihilation took place, and the king saw a boat coming near. After getting on board with learned brahmanas and saintly persons, he offered prayers to worship the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Lord is situated in everyone's heart, and thus he taught Maharaj Satyavrata and the saintly persons about Vedic knowledge from the core of the heart. King Satyavrata took his next birth as Vaivasvata Manu, who is mentioned in Bhagavad Gita. Vivasvan Manave Praha. The sun god spoke the science of Bhagavad Gita to his son Manu. Because of being the son of Vivasvan, this Manu is known as Vaivasvata Manu. So We are doing three texts today, so I'll just read text one. Sri Raja Uvacha Bhagavan Krotamichami Hare Adbhuta Hamana Avatara. Need my glasses, sorry. Come undone when it comes to Sanskrit. Okay. Bhagavan Shrotamichami Hare Adbhuta Karmana Avatara Katam Adyam Maya Matsya Vidambanam. Translation: Maharaj Pariksit said, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Hari is eternally situated in his transcendental position, yet he descends to this material world and manifests himself in various incarnations. His first incarnation was that of a great fish. O most powerful Sukadev Goswami, I wish to hear from you the pastimes of that fish incarnation. The purport: Supreme Personality of Godhead is all-powerful, yet he accepted the form of an uncommon fish. This is one of the 10 original incarnations of the Lord. So now we just have the text 2 on the board, so we will chant that. Was it text 3? Sorry, it's text 3. I'll just chant text 2. It's complicated. Yadartama tadarupam achyam loka jugupsitam tama prakriti durmasam karmo grasta iveshvara. So text 3, please repeat after me. Etam no Bhagavan sarvam yatavad vaktum arhasi uttama shloka charitam sarva loka sukhavaham etano Bhagavan sarvam yatavad vaktumahasi uttama shloka charitam sarva loka sukhavaham etano Bhagavan sarvam yatavad vaktumahasi uttama shloka charitam sarva loka sukhavaham. Mataji. Yadartam. For what purpose? Adadhad. Accepted. Rupam. Form. Matsyam. Of a fish. Loga jukupsitam. Which is certainly not very favourable in this world. Tama. In the mode of ignorance. Prakriti. Such behaviour. Durmarsam. Which is certainly very painful and condemned. Karmagrashta. One who is under the laws of karma. Eva. Like. Ishvara. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. Etat. All these facts. Na. Unto us. Bhagavan. O most powerful sage. Sarvam. Everything. Yasavat. Properly. Vyaktamahasi. Kindly describe. Uttama Shloka Charitam. Pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sarvaloka Sukha Avaham. By hearing of which everybody becomes happy. Translation. What was the purpose for which the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepted the abominable form of a fish, exactly as an ordinary living being accepts different forms under the laws of karma? The form of a fish is certainly condemned and full of terrible pain. Oh my Lord, what was the purpose of this incarnation? Kindly explain this to us, for hearing about the pastimes of the Lord is auspicious for everyone. Purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Parikshit Maharaj's question to Sukadev Goswami was based on the principles stated by the Lord Himself in Bhagavad Gita 4:7. Yada yada hi dharmasya glani bhavati bharata abhutanam dharmasya taratmanam shri jamyaham. Whenever and wherever there is a decline in religious practice, so descendant of Bharat, and a predominant rise of irreligion at that time, I descend myself. The Lord appears in each incarnation to save the world from irreligious principles and especially to protect His devotees. Paritranaya sadhanam. Vamanadev, for example, appeared to save the devotee Bali Maharaj. Similarly, when the Supreme Personality of Godhead accepted the abominable form of a fish, He must have done so to favour some devotee. Parikshit Maharaj was eager to know about the devotee from whom the Supreme Lord accepted this form. Amagyanaatimirandasya jananjana slakaya chaksu unmilitam yena tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Mukham karoti vachalam pangum langayate girim yad kripatamaham vande Shri Gurum Dinatarinanam. I would like to seek the blessings of the assembled Vaishnavas to speak on the glorious Srimad Bhagavatam in the same mood, but even though on a smaller footsteps, but nevertheless the same mood of the previous speakers of the past week, whose classes have been absolutely wonderful. So, my name is Vasu Srestha Das. As you can tell, I am from Australia. I was initiated by Srila Prabhupada in 1976, and coincidentally it happened to be the same initiation ceremony as Tita Guna Mataji, who is present today, so that is rather extraordinary. So I'm hoping to get some leeway. So, because when I read this sloka that I was giving, given it was about fish, I thought this is rather inappropriate for a person coming from Australia to talk about fish, because there is a certain connections that Australians have with fish. I won't say it's in a good way, but we can discuss this anyway. So the translation in verse 3 is a very poignant one, describing the trials and tribulations of fish, that they're abominable and they're condemned and full of terrible pain. They suffer. So in the Srimad Bhagavatam, in the first canto, 15th chapter, verse 16, the shloka begins with just saying, just as in the ocean, the big and stronger aquatic will swallow up the weaker one. So we also have that saying that one living entity is food for another. But nothing happens on such a grand scale as what happens in the ocean. It can be quite understandable, actually, because when you look at the ocean, there's nothing very much to eat there, except fish to eat each other. There's a little bit of seaweed. So the fish, always, if you look at fish in the ocean, they're always fearful. Their eyes are darting here and there. They swim in shoals. You have a big shoal, they swim along. All of a sudden it turns 90 degrees and then it turns again. They're always dodging and weaving here and there because of the fact that they're going to be eaten. On a massive scale, I saw a documentary once about the orca whales, the gigantic whales. They call them killer whales. So they swim in groups, and when the ocean is vast and there's pods and shoals of a little whiting little fish swimming about, the whales will herd the fish into one big group, and they will stay around the fish in a circle. And then progressively, one whale will go in and gorge himself on the shoals of millions of fish to his full satisfaction, come out, take his place, and the other whale will come in. So they will do it in an organised fashion and devour the fish. So that is the laws of nature. That is how living entities exist. And gradually, as the fish get eaten, then they move up throughout the 900,000 species of aquatics. Of course, when the fish get closer to the top of the surface, then hundreds and thousands of birds are waiting to snap them up, because that is also food for birds. And then we have the human beings who, knowing that the fish are desperate, they'll put a worm on a hook and put it out there, make the fish an easy target. So in Australia, that pastime is very, very much ingrained with the Australian way of life, in mode of ignorance, of course, but nevertheless, the language is ingrained with shlokas going fishing, gone fishing, which is appropriate for holidays, businesses gone bankrupt, or retirement. In retirement, they'll cast a line. That's what they think of, that when they get old, that they'll sit by a river or the sea and throw in a line. And there's a big industry on that. There are TV shows talking about the best places to go and whatever. There's warehouse full of fish gear and cooking equipment, how to barbecue your fish. So for the average Australian, that's innocuous enough. But what the person doesn't see is that when he pulls the fish out of the water, the fish is actually gasping for breath, because it is a living entity. It is thinking, feeling and willing. And they watch the fish die without any recourse whatsoever. So that's the laws of that for them, they don't understand that there are different laws. There's the laws of the government, which allows them to fish if they've got a licence, and if they fish in a certain spot, that's okay. So that's all they care about. But for the laws of nature, they're actually interfering with the laws of nature because that is not for one living entity to take the life of another living entity, especially when he has the intelligence to discriminate. Aham brahmasmi, I am not this body. So the common law and the laws of nature. So the laws of nature are very stringent, and we have the enforcers of the laws of nature. We have Yamaraj and his assistants, the Jamadutas. So in the 6th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, it describes how the Yamadutas are very, very astute at their application of making sure that the laws of nature are observed properly. Srila Prabhupada explains in the 6th canto of the Bhagavatam that sometimes the laws of nature and the laws of human beings, the laws of society, becomes a little bit convoluted with the laws of nature, and sometimes they criticize the persons who observe the laws of nature. So this came out in the 6th canto. I just want to talk about the timeline because it's quite interesting, because when I joined in 1974 in Amsterdam, the 4th canto of the Srimad Bhagavatam came out, 4th canto past part 1. It was the first book that I read, and it was about Lord Shiva. Just come from India and everybody was a Shivite, and I thought that Shiva was God. So anyway, it was a very interesting book to read. And then after that, in Australia, I joined up in 1975, 1976, and we were distributing books. And I remember, like around December or January, the 5th canto came out, and that was ecstatic. There's that epic shot where Srila Prabhupada is given the 5th canto. He opens it up and he's looking at all the pages of all the heavenly planets and the hellish planets, and he's got a big smile there. That's an epic photo there, Prabhupada in the 5th canto. And then later on in 1976, the 6th canto came out, and in the purport, that's when Prabhupada described that sometimes his preachers are going out preaching and they wrongly get accosted by the laws of the land, saying that they're transgressing the laws of the land where they're trying to preserve the laws of nature, the laws of God. So I was in that situation at that point in time that was like history making in 1976, because the book distributors in Australia were getting arrested so many times. I personally can't remember how many times I was arrested, but I do remember the first time. I just want to recant this. It may be of some interest to some people. In the first time I ever was arrested, I was verbaled. I just want to ask anybody, do they know what verbaled mean, or has anybody been verbaled at all? I haven't been verbaled. So I was distributing books, and then all of a sudden I'm in the back of a division wagon with a couple of police who take me into a room and subject me to some interrogation. And if you've ever been interrogated by police, I've only been in a police station as a devotee, not before, but you have the good cop, bad cop syndrome. First of all, the bad cop comes in and throws the book at you. We're going to lock you up forever there. Nobody knows you're here, and you're such a bad guy. You've broken all the laws, and so forth, right? And then the good cop comes in. Oh, don't take any notice of him. He's just he's sounding off there. I'm your friend. You look tired. Oh, what time do you get up in the morning? Oh, 4 o'clock. Oh, really? Oh, what you have for breakfast? Oh, have khichdi. Hey, I thought this guy's a nice guy. Start up a conversation. Have khichdi. It's rice and mung beans, and and then he said, well, you really strongly believe in Krishna, don't you? Oh, yeah. Well, we get up and we chant Krishna's names throughout the day. and so on and so forth. So the next morning, the day of the court, that same policeman, he's acting as a prosecutor. Your Honour, the defendant admits belonging to a cult, the Hare Krishna cult. He has to undergo sleep deprivation, forced to pray at 4 a.m, and only gets fed mung beans for breakfast. And he's such a state of brainwash, he's dumped on the street to proselytise innocent citizens. The judge: guilty as charged. I go, what's going on? I'm guilty. So that's being verbal, so you know. So anyway, next time, I gave them my name, where I come from, and I said that I was just minding my own business. You arrested me, so if you want to charge me, here's my lawyer, talk to my lawyer. It always works well because we have good lawyers, and policemen don't like to be made fools by these lawyers. So the Yamadutas, they are fearsome creatures also. They are very, very hungry to exact revenge. Some of them come from pretty loca, the planet of the forefathers, and their descendants have forgotten about them. They've stopped giving the pinda, and they're becoming very hungry, very agitated, very ugly indeed, and they want to exact revenge on the human beings. Perfect candidates for being agents of the Yamaraj, the Lord of Death. And they're very, very verbose about sinful activities, just like in the case of Ajmir when he was taken by them and taken away by the Vishnu Dutas, who said that he's not in your jurisdiction. They were very, very agitated, and they actually wanted to discuss with Yamaraj that, Yamaraj, we thought that you were the Supreme Lord. How can they take the sinful living entity? They didn't want to lose anybody. There was a famous story in the Srimad Bhagavatam Canto, Canto 1, Chapter 13, it talks about Vidura leaving home. Of course, we know that Vidura used to be Yamaraj in his last life, and Srila Prabhupada gave a purport about this great sage called Mandaka Muni. You're familiar with Mandaka Muni, are you? Yeah, okay. So Mandaka Muni was a great sage, and he was just meditating in his hut, right? And all of a sudden this robber's fleeing the law, fleeing from the police, and he hides in Mandaka Muni's hut. So the police come and they find this robber in the sage's hut. So they take both of them off to jail and to court, and somehow or other, I don't know if you call it verbling, but Mandaka Muni is charged with a robbery and all the other abominable things that robber did. And for his punishment, he was to undergo the asara. It's called the asara. It was a form of punishment in India where they take a lance, they put the lance in your rectum. This is for these people who have their eyes shut. It's just a little bit of wake-up call. Put your lance in the rectum, take it through your body and to the top of your head. That is a form of punishment meted out. And that was the punishment given to Mandaka Muni. And he is just amazed. And then the king happened to hear of this, that this great sage is just about to be lanced, the Asara. Of course, the king comes running down, frees Mandaka Muni, apologises greatly to him, but Mandaka Muni is so mad that why did this happen to me, and he summons Yamaraj. So then Yamaraj explained to him that when he was a small boy, he actually got a pin or prick, and he pricked the ant through the anus like that. And because of that, he was to undergo the punishment of being lanced. And Mandaka Muni was in a rage. He said, how can you do this? I'm a great sage. I'm beyond all that. I'm a Brahmin. I'm on the Brahman platform. I'm a Brahmana. And you threaten this punishment to a Brahmana. That is totally unjust and uncalled for. And as a result of that, I curse you to become a Sudra. So at that point in time, Yamaraj had to take birth as Vidura. Of course, there's always a double sort of innuendo in the Bhagavatam that curse turned out to be a blessing because Vidura was able to preach Krishna consciousness and do some preaching instead of having that job as a judge of all the living entities. But nevertheless, you know, the Yamadutas are very strong on punishment. So the Aussies, they have this bravado. Nah, not afraid to die, mate. No, I don't care what's going to happen to me. Can't be worse than this. Like that, they carry on like that. So a friend of mine, a very, very good dear godbrother of mine, was telling me a story yesterday that he joined up in the United States and he was on book distribution. And sometimes when you're a bhakti, you're thinking, well, it's so hard here. Am I doing the right thing? Am I in the right place, the right time, in the right movement? So he's giving out books, and all of a sudden, this person had a heart attack in front of him. Just walking along, he had a heart attack. And all of a sudden, he sort of cries out, grasps his heart, and as he's falling down, he put his hand out going, no! And then he collapsed in a heap on the pavement. Just a split second, because the devotee knew the Shastra. He understood that at that moment the Yamadutas had come and reached the soul out of the body, and he collapsed in a heap. And everybody said, oh, he's had a heart attack. He goes, okay, I'm convinced. He keeps on distributing. So that is the Yamadutas. So the living entity is in the court of Yamaraj. So if all these fishing enthusiasts, Yamaraj weighs up there, kill. You've killed innocent creatures, fish, and for that you have to actually suffer so many lifetimes as a fish. Oh, but I didn't know, I was just, but everybody across all courts of law, ignorance is no excuse. So the punishment is hell. Swimming in a river of blood, and then eating different feces, getting ripped apart by hooks, and for a period of however many fish somebody has killed. So during that course, that they have to eat all the different feces and the rotting carcasses and that, and then they start to discriminate. Oh, I'll go for this one, this tastes better than the other one. So then the Yamadutas say, okay, you are ready to become a fish. And they put you in a big vast ocean of aquatics, and then once again you can circulate in these 900,000 species of life. So that's the fish species. But then the human being, he not only eats fish, but he eats cows, he eats sheep, he eats pigs, kangaroos in Australia. Actually, I read once about the British Raj. When they were in India in the 1800s, they used to have the nobleman. And the nobleman would like to have his breakfast of every conceivable living entity cooked on his table, so he could look at it and enjoy like that. So the Australians, well, some of us are descendants from the British, so we have all that varieties that we have. So we know that there's 8,400,000 species of life. There's, like what we said, 900 aquatics, 3 million animals, 1,100,000 insects, 2 million trees, 1 million birds, and 400,000 species of human beings. And there's also cannibals amongst the human beings as well that have to be accounted for. So I did some maths. This is just to get things into perspective. So we work out a kalpa, a day of Lord Brahma. We're talking kalpas here in this chapter. So what is a day of Lord Brahma? Just everybody, just to keep the oxygen going. Does anybody like to tell me? Yes. 1,000 cycles of 4 yugas, and 4 yugas are 4,320,000 years. So altogether you get about 4,320,000,000 years. That's just 12 hours of Lord Brahma. So you get 8,400,000 species of life, and you divide that into 311 trillion, and you come up with 51 years for each species. So therefore, the 8,400,000 species of the living entity has to go through for his karma. So he's cast as a fish in the ocean. He goes through the 900 species there and through all the other species. So if you divide all that, you get 51 years for each species. Of course, that's not actually entirely correct, because some species live for a shorter period of time, some species live for a longer period. But on the other hand, it says in the Bhagavatam that for every hair of a cow that you harm, that you have to live a life as a cow and be killed. So that would actually extend that period by so many hundreds and thousands and millions of births. So really, we don't know if the living entity in one lifetime commits himself for one kalpa, or maybe even more, one kalpa, 1 year of 1 day or 1 year of Lord Brahma. Who knows? That is the damage the living entity can do to himself, condemned to so many different species of life. So in this discussion here that Prabhupada, in the sloka here, Prabhupada speaks that the fish is a miserable birth. And indeed it is, because it's abominable, it eats its own. And in the development of the species, it's listed as the lowest. But there is a little bit of an anomaly there, because actually the fish, even though it has eyes and sense of taste, it has 2 developed senses. So usually the creatures, as they come up through the hierarchy, their sensory perceptions develop. But still, in the Bhagavatam, it's listed that the fish is the lowest species. In the Canto 1, verse 3, chapter 26, Prabhupada describes in the purport here that first of all, you have the vast ocean that it comes with the creation, and then from that ocean, in that ocean, the fish fills up, and then from the fish you have trees, and then trees and plants and creepers, and then from that you get insects, and from the insects you get birds, and from birds you get animals, from animals you get human beings. Somebody might say, well, that's very close to Darwin's theory, but it's not actually, because this Prabhupada is talking about is an evolution of consciousness. Darwin just talked about the evolution of the body. So Prabhupada explains here that the fish is a miserable birth. Why? Because it can never taste Krishna consciousness. It can never know, because actually the first process of Krishna consciousness is hearing. And the animals, they can hear the vibration of Krishna's names. And even the plants, they can feel the vibration. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, he used to hug the trees, and in Vrindavan the trees and creepers would sort of melt with the melodious sound of Krishna's flute. But not only that, with the plants and the vegetables that we can offer them to Krishna. And so every other type of creature can either hear the chanting or participate in Krishna's pastimes somehow or other, in Krishna consciousness. But the fish can't, because the fish is deaf, it can't see anything, so it's condemned to just swimming in the water. So people might ask that if the fish is the lowest, then why don't we eat fish instead of plants? Well, we can say, Patram Puspam Phalam Toyam Yo Mi Bhakti Prayachati Tadam Ham Bhakti Paritam Ashnami Prayatatmana, that actually if one offers me a fruit, flower, leaf or water, with love and devotion I accept it. So Krishna doesn't say fish. And somebody goes, why not? Well, look at the purport. The fish is abominable, full of suffering. Why would you want to eat it? Anyway, so Srila Prabhupada explains that the thing about the fish. And just one quick comment, I am running out of time, as I thought I might be. But he talked about the surfer. I have to talk about surfing, because Srila Prabhupada, when he came to Australia, he saw the surfers. And first his reaction was that they're going to become fish in their next life. They want to swim like dolphins, they become dolphins. But then he had empathy for the surfer. He said the surfer is suffering. Indeed, the surfer does suffer. He suffers from the greatest fish in the Bhagavad Gita, Pavana Pavatam Shmi Rama Shastri Britam Maham Jasam Makaras Jasmi, that Pavana Pavatam, of the winds I am of the purifiers I am the wind, of the wielder of weapons I am Lord Rama, and of fishes I am the shark. So Prabhupada describes that the shark is one of the biggest aquatics and it also most fearsome. So everybody fears the shark. Particularly in Australia when people go surfing, there's sharks that take surfers regularly. So that is the other side of the coin, that you're looking for enjoyment and then all of a sudden something comes along, shark, your leg's bitten off, gone, you become a shark. Yum yum vapi smaram bhavam. But then there's a special relationship with the surfers, because the surfers like the high, they want to get heightened ecstasy. Sometimes they're attracted to the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. One time a couple of months ago, we were in Broadbeach and we just organised a chanting party. It's always hard to get a chanting party of 15, 20 people that will meet 50 kilometres away. We've got to make sure we meet at the right time, who's brought the speaker, who's playing the drum and all this. And finally, we're all shuffling around, ladies up the front, and we just got it together. We went around the corner, it was a Pro-Am. It was the World Surfing Championship, and we come around the corner, everybody goes, hooray, the Hurries are here, the Hurries are here, just like we were on cue. So it was very nice. We had a very, very favourable reception, and I remember thinking, as I was watching the surfers competing, weaving in about like dolphins, I was thinking that actually sound travels over water. So hopefully they heard the chanting of the holy names of the Lord. Indeed, when Srila Prabhupada came, he preached to a lot of surfers in Australia in 1976, and so many of the surfers actually became devotees and started chanting and dancing because actually they experienced the ecstasy of chanting. Jivanath Prabhu was talking about how he joined a couple of days ago, and he experienced the ecstasy of Mangalarti when Vishnujan Swami led Mangalarti, and everybody was leaving the ground, jumping up and down. I would recall one ecstatic experience of when I just joined up. Maybe it was the first day or second day after I was initiated, actually, that Srila Prabhupada came to Australia. He was there in Australia. He came to Sundarati. He was sitting there. And Guru Kripa Swami was leading the arti. And it was starting to get more intense, started to get pumped up. The bodies were sweating, devotees were jumping up and down. All of a sudden, Guru Kripa would be there with Radha and Krishna, go running towards Prabhupada, full tilt, right? And so Prabhupada, generally the Prabhupada that I used to see would be a very, very grave countenance Prabhupada. He always looked very grave. Sometimes you would get a very lovely smile every now and then, but normally everybody experienced their spiritual masters being very grave. So this point in time, Guru Kripa go running towards Prabhupada, take this giant leap and land just at the steps of Srila Prabhupada's Vyasasana. And then Srila Prabhupada would just break out in this wonderful smile, this beaming, radiant smile. And Guru Kripa would run back again and do it again, come and take another jump and land in front of Prabhupada. And Prabhupada would smile so wonderfully, so beautifully again, and the third time. And I was just watching this interaction between spiritual master and disciple, and it was just a wonderful thing to see. So when you experience that ecstasy, then you know that there is no other ecstasy that is available there, even though the surfers are looking for ecstasy or whatever. So the world is steeped in ignorance, so they've forgotten the Lord of the heart, and they're looking at other different directions. So they're looking towards sense gratification. So that is there. And if you've lived so many years as some of us have lived, I'm getting quite old now, that we saw in the beginning how of our youth, how sense gratification has increased so much that in the West, when I was a small boy, they weren't allowed to drink alcohol in public after 6 in the evening, nothing on Sundays, everybody goes to church. And also now you look at it, alcohol's available even in the convenience stores, you can get anywhere, no restrictions. Gambling, you can gamble on the phone. I know in India particularly, people love keeping their phone. Why? The cricket. You can gamble on the cricket. Got the smiles, won't you? So that is there, even in India. And then the illicit sex, that is so much rampant now. That is the sort of the opiate of the public. And of course, meat eating. That meat eating is just so much publicity there. So there is so much of it now that the only thing that is preventing is just like we have the Dharma, the Artha, the Karma and the Moksha, the cycle. So now you can really say that Karma is at its peak. It can't get any more than this, right? And then the only thing that is stopping them is God. So if they want to get rid of God, then they've sort of got full throttle. But that is not actually the case, because the sense gratification is not meant for a human being, and people are suffering so much from sense gratification. Just like the hospitals are full of this, that with alcohol, people are dying of alcoholic poisoning, their kidneys, their internal organs are being poisoned. With drugs, they're going crazy. With gambling, they're sort of going broke. And with meat eating, there's so many diseases are coming from that. And then this intelligent person will see, and they will look to something else, and they will look towards spirituality. So just on our farm in New Govardhan, we have what we call the Eco Village and Yoga Retreat. So I asked these people one time, I said, what do you think spirituality really means? Right? And then, of course, being spiritual, we get all these different answers, that being in nature by yourself, becoming one with nature, hugging, holding hands in a group, focusing your mind, looking at the light within the heart, vipassana, that is a big one. But all these explanations are just different varieties of the modes of material nature. That's all they are. There is no understanding of what is the real spiritual nature. So this is where Lord Chaitanya says, Jeev Jago, wake up, sleeping souls. So this wake-up call begins with the chanting, the congregational chanting of the holy names. So I just want to emphasize this, that actually how important it is. This was the beginning of Lord Chaitanya's Sankirtan movement. It was the beginning when Srila Prabhupada went to Tompkins Square Park on his own and began the chanting. And then for the devotees who subsequently joined up, they were out on the street for 8 hours a day, chanting, becoming purified, purifying everybody else. And so that is there. That is still the same. Nothing has changed, except one thing, that we have got a lot bigger as a society in this day and age. So we have so many tasks that we have to do, so many services. We have so much administration, so much cooking, so many other managerial duties to look after. But still, we should actually understand that we have to go back. We should go back to the roots and get back to chanting, and try chanting, fit in some chanting here and there, because actually it is so enlivening, and it creates the atmosphere of God consciousness, because actually that is what we're cutting through. This is what people are looking for. We're the only ones that have this God consciousness, and we're getting from Srila Prabhupada, and we're smashing through because people are becoming frustrated. Just like in the Back to Godhead magazine, which I used to love to distribute in the early days. We used to have so many Back to Godheads given to them. Srila Prabhupada would be on the top of the Back to Godhead magazine. Do you remember that? The finger Srila Prabhupada's profile and the finger pointing and said, Godhead is light, nescience is darkness. Wherever there is Godhead, there is no darkness. Right? Wherever there is light, there is no darkness. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So are there any questions, comments, attractions? All glories to Srila Prabhupada ki jai. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.